Hey Rosebuds, welcome to the Rose Garden, where we will be discussing important social issues and trending topics. I'm your host, Nyeri Rose. Welcome in, Rosebuds. It's your host, Nyeri Rose, and I must say, I need to record in the mornings. It is something about this sunlight that is just giving me life. It's giving me energy right now. I usually record my podcast at night because I feel like all my thoughts come at that time, but I'm loving this sun that I'm getting. If you're not getting sun right now, I apologize. We might be in different time zones right now. You never know when you're listening to this. But I also have to apologize because I am coming off of a sinus infection. So if I sound a little nasally on this episode, please forgive me. I have my water right beside me. And let's just get into it, okay? We have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to cover. So today's podcast is going to be conversations about mass shootings. Yes, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the mass shootings that have been going on, And we're just going to get right into it because I know a lot of us have thoughts, feelings, emotions. A lot of us are tired. We're trying to figure things out around safety. And so first and foremost, I just want to say that my prayers, my thoughts, everything goes out to those in Uvalde, Texas at the Robb Elementary School. Devastating. What happened there is so devastating. I cannot imagine what I would feel if I was to send my babies to school and they did not return home. I do not know the emotions of those parents right now, those teachers right now, staff, all those people who run an establishment and had such a travesty happen at their site. I am a current teacher and I see the dangers of just hostile work environments, not feeling safe at the school. I know what that looks like, and we can get into it a little bit because I'm currently at a high school. And we just wrapped up. And of course, the last day of school, everyone wants to fight. Now, I know this might be like culture for some people, like, okay, last day of school, there's either a food fight or there's some type of ritualistic thing that goes on. So it's like, oh my gosh, yay, we're going into the summer. But for me, it's not okay. Some of my students were like, oh, Miss, it's going to be lit. And I'm like, why is it going to be lit? I'm knowing that it's the last day of school, but I'm just like, oh, why is it going to be lit? And they're like, oh, because everybody's going to get their ones today. And I'm like, their ones? And they're like, yeah, everybody's going to fight. So if you had beef with somebody, all school year, now's the time to, get your one-on-one or, duke it out. And I'm like, are you guys serious right now? Like, that's what we're thinking about? And it's not just the last day of school. These kids have been fighting. But worse than just fighting each other, it seems like there's just this overshadowing violence. Like, everyone wants to be violent. These kids are so violent. Like, it's not just that they're fighting each other. Some of these kids have weapons on them. Yes, I repeat, some of these kids have weapons on them. We had so many kids that were caught and had weapons confiscated on their bodies. And it's like, oh, situation's taken care of. But all it takes is for one person to actually be about that life and actually use their weapon to cause harm. We had so many incidents where students were hurt or jumped, not just at my school, but at many schools in this area. Kids being brutally attacked. Kids drawing blood, going for blood. And I know that doesn't equivalent to a mass shooting, but what I'm saying is this is not new. This is not unheard of. It's not uncommon. This has been taking place. And it's not just Robb Elementary. There have been so many schools that have had mass shootings. We have schools in Chicago that have had mass shootings. And not everything is televised. Y'all have to realize that. Not every situation is televised. But they know when to televise the right situations to get you guys to be emotional, to get you guys to be sick and tired and devastated, to cause fear, to amp it up. They know how to pull our strings to make us so angry and so afraid, and to lose faith in the education system, which has already been, I don't want to use bad language, but which has already gone to the toilet. They know how to do these things strategically to where it's a cycle. I seen something on Instagram and it's like mass shooting, and then it's a media extravaganza, and everybody sends out their hopes and their prayers, and then basically we forget about it. It's a cycle, rinse and repeat. And so I had to ask myself, how do we get this to stop? Because a lot of people go to gun violence and our access to guns. And I'm in Vegas, so it was new to me coming here and moving here and seeing like people with guns on their hips and like it being legalized. Like that was like a lot because I already have trauma when it comes to guns, and I'll talk about that in another episode. But just the whole gun safety and gun laws, like, and seeing it and just people having access to guns, a lot of people like to throw that in the mix, and honestly, that's not the problem. They want you to think it's the problem. It's one of the problems. And I know there's something going on in Congress and voting and all that. It's like, it's a little bit of the problem. Yes, I'll say that. It's a little bit of the problem. But when I heard about this story, and I was like, wow, that's devastating. But I had to think about, okay, why did this happen? What was the cause? What was the reason for this taking place? So I had to think about the gunman. I had to think about, okay, 18-year-old male goes to an elementary school, kills a bunch of babies, a couple of teachers. What was the reason? And only two things, maybe both of them simultaneously occurred. But the first thing I thought of was, okay, maybe he had like a mental health issue, doesn't know how to regulate, something could be going on here with his mental health. Something of that. Like, I don't want to throw out disorders and disabilities, but I was just like, mental health. But the second thing I thought of, it stuck with me. It was like, it was stronger than my first one. And I was like, or he was bullied. Simple as that. He was bullied. He probably went to this school, or any elementary school for that matter. He was probably heavily bullied. They probably called him out his name. They probably picked on him, kicked him, talked about his clothes, talked about his outfits, talked about him, his family, all up and down. He was bullied. And so you know what happened to him? He stayed in that child's place. Let a couple years go by to where he was an adult and could legally purchase and buy and do things. And then he retaliated on some children that had nothing to do with the harm that was caused, but he never got the proper treatment. So he couldn't normalize himself back into reality. And what do you know? About a couple hours later, I seen headlines all over Instagram. He was bullied. Family says that he was talked about. His family was poor. Things like that. And so what this says for me, and it's kind of going back into my last podcast where I talked about perception, but what this says for me is that we're having a problem. School is not just school, it's a social arena. You are dating, figuring yourself out, figuring out what person you're gonna be, figuring out what goals you have, what career you're wanting to go, how your grades are looking, how your relationships are with your teachers and your classmates. It's a social thing. And socially, if you don't look like how everyone else looks, if you're not dressed how everyone else is dressed, if you present yourself as someone who's poor, if you have an odor to you, because some kids, they go to school and they can't afford deodorant and they have hygiene issues, you are going to be bullied. There is a target on your back. And we like to glamorize bullying and cyberbullying and oh, it's bad and we shouldn't do this. And this is what being a good role model or being a good peer looks like. We like to say those things, but are we actively doing it in the schools? Because I don't see it a lot, and I'm in a school and I haven't seen it. And I know, speaking from personal experience, I was heavily bullied in school. Especially elementary school. Part of my journey is healing from the things that were said and done when I was in educational institutions. And some of us who've experienced this, or the mean girl, mean boy thing at school, some of us who were unfortunate and had to go through those things, yeah, some of us, we made it and we're okay. But a lot of people are not okay based on the things that were said and done in their schools. And this is why part of the focus of my podcast is to normalize human-to-human connection and interaction. Because we have to be empathetic to those who are different from us. I'm not saying that we have to all hold hands and sing Kumbaya and work together as one, because we're not doing that. We're not coming together as one. Everybody wants to be different. Everybody wants to be an individual and have their individual beliefs, which is fine. But we have to be compassionate to each other, guys. We have to teach our kids. If you see somebody that has a little less than you, or that's not doing okay, if you're not just going to leave them alone, definitely don't make fun of them. Definitely don't put them down. I worked in special education for at least 5 years, and I learned right then and there how different people are and how different individuals are. But I also learned that in their difference, there is still intelligence beyond imperfection. I have seen some of the brightest kids with disabilities do remarkable things than what's considered or deemed as normal. And so, just going back to my point, it's bigger than guns. I said this is like a spiritual warfare, guys. And we are getting played with like toys. Because in a few months, this is going to die down. Not everyone is going to forget, but it'll be, dwindled down. Something will happen in pop culture. We'll focus on that. Some of us, we posted, sorry to the people over there. And then we have memes and we're joking again. When is it going to actually matter? When it actually affects you? Because a lot of people feel like, okay, well, if it didn't happen to me directly, why should I care? And I get that, but we can't go around saying that we want better in our society if we're not doing better. We have our back against the walls right now. It's a lot going on. And I know a lot of us, we might joke and take cute pictures for the gram, but I know it's a lot of us struggling to make ends meet, struggling to get out of bed, to go to an unfulfilling job, struggling to put gas in our car, struggling to put groceries in our fridge. I know it's a lot of people right now who cry at night alone because they don't know what the future holds for them. And if it's not the future, then maybe the present is becoming a stressful place, because as soon as you receive a blessing or an opportunity, it's like the devil is right there on your shoulder, on your behind, trying to get you caught up. They want us to be faithless. And this has nothing to do with religion. Let me make that clear. This has nothing to do with religion. This is all about spirituality. Where is your spirit right now? Are you in tune with who you are? The things that you want in life? Are you actively manifesting your goals? Because shootings, mass shootings and killings and violence, it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. There are people who aren't as strong as the collective. And they're tired. Just how we're tired, they're tired. And so they're actually about that life, and they're gonna do what they think is necessary to help them feel better. But it's temporary. Healing is a process. It takes patience. It takes time. No matter what you've been through, no matter the severity of your trauma, it takes time. We just had a couple of weeks ago, before this, I'm looking it up, so if you hear typing, I apologize. But we just had a shooting in Buffalo. That dwindled down so quick. It was kind of like, ooh, we're not really going to touch on them black people, them elderly black people. But guess what? Here's a mass shooting that's happened. Everybody talk about that. And I, for the longest, did not want to talk about this Buffalo shooting that happened at the supermarket because I had no words. I had no words for it. What if that's your grandma or your grandfather, your uncle, someone you love? Like, what if that's your mom or your dad? How am I supposed to feel about that? 10 people were killed. And if I have that number wrong, I apologize. But it's not okay. This is not okay. And I believe I was listening to there was a tweet posted by someone, and it was along the lines of all these people had something to say when the Will Smith and Chris Rock slap happened, but those same people aren't speaking up about the Buffalo shooting. And I was like, okay, heard. But you want to know why they're not speaking up? And I believe the singer Selena Johnson, she touched on it a little bit. But people aren't speaking up because it's normal. Black on black crime is normal, or violence happening to black people is normal. So regardless of who the shooter was, regardless of if he was a white supremacist, us dying, that doesn't matter. They want us to die. Like, they want us to die. Because everything has to be about race all the time. In this instance of the elementary school shooting, we just hear the word children. Race is not involved. Strategically, you just have children, and teacher. With the Buffalo shooting, you know that the victims are black. You know that the killer is white. But is anyone talking about how the killer of the Buffalo shooting, how he was apprehended safely, unharmed, alive? And if you look at what the killer in the elementary school looked like, if you go look at him, no matter how long it took to get to him, he did not walk out of that school alive. And there's something to say about that. There are deeper meanings in all of this. And I don't want to go too deep or too far into the rabbit hole when it comes to this. But for me, all of this violence, all of this death, it just comes back to us being empathetic towards each other and human. And how everyone isn't going to be how you are. Everyone's not going to act how you act. Everyone's not going to feel how you feel. But despite those differences, we should still allow space to be compassionate, to listen. Everyone, and I have to tell myself this too, because it comes down to insecurity as well. But everyone isn't a hater or an op or an enemy. Not everyone. No. Some people are your reflection. Everything that you don't like about the person that you're currently beefing with today, you probably don't like them because they remind you of you. They are your mirrored reflection. And so, when I think about going back to bullying and people and children bullying each other, why do we bully? Because if you see someone and they don't have on the brand new clothes, they don't have on the brand new shoes, what does it matter to you? If you want to take it a step further, when you think about homophobia and people who talk about other gay people or people who are a part of the LGBTQ community, and I bring this up because it's going to be Pride Month, June 1st. But when you think about those individuals and you think about people who hurt them or cause harm to that community, what is it to you? If it is not you and you're not the person doing it, why bully, hurt, harass someone else? What is it to you? And so I just feel like when people bully or they cause harm in those ways, it's just a projection or a reflection of their true selves. Again, I'm not justifying anyone killing any children, because that is wrong. And I know if those were my babies, I would be in uproar right now. I would be broken. I would be shattered into pieces. Is there a way that it could have been prevented? I am not God. I don't know anything about that. But I know all this stuff is happening for a reason. And I know that this young man waited 10 plus years to act out this vicious crime because someone or some individuals decided that he wasn't good enough, so they bullied him and made fun of him. This happens all the time. I see it even now in the school systems. People getting bullied and targeted and harmed. And the people who are doing it are so cutthroat. For example, I remember I was in elementary school, and I was telling a classmate about, stuff that was going on at home. I was very unhappy. There was some, issues that I was having. And maybe the next day or a couple days later, we had a disagreement about double dutch. And that little girl, she said, that is why you're going through X, Y, and Z. And she basically repeated all of my trauma back to me, but in the form of making fun of me. And she did it with an audience. And I just remember it being the most hurtful thing I had ever been through. Here I trusted somebody with my secrets. And I told them, hey, I'm going through this thing. I didn't want to tell a teacher. I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't want to tell an adult. I didn't want to get anyone involved. So I said, here, let me go to my peer and tell them, hey, I'm going through these things. And they used it against me. And people do that now. They use your pain and they use your secrets and they use it against you. And I know growing up, I said to myself, I will, if anything, that is something that I just don't want to do. I don't want to use anyone's pain or trauma against them as leverage to make myself feel good. That's what trolls do. Everyone's digging in someone else's past instead of their own to hurt people as a coping mechanism to make themselves feel better. And I just don't understand. It doesn't make sense. It will never make sense to me. And so now, moving forward, when I look at that situation and I think about, okay, well, why did she do that? Probably because she was going through the same thing at home too. And it was just easier to call it out on me. Because another thing I was just talking about with my husband, we were talking about how, okay, you're going through this issue, right? But you're only going through this issue with this person because they can see that you're weaker than them, or they can see that you're not as confident. They can see your insecurities based on how you look, dress, and present yourself. And that's why beauty and confidence is so mainstream, because it does matter. That's why people dress themselves up in designer, because it takes away from their flaws. You can't see what a person has been through based on the clarity of their skin, the clothes that they wear. But if you look at an individual and you see they're weathered a little bit, their shoes have a little scuffs on them and scratches, their clothes have a couple of holes in them, then you know that they've been through something, and it's easier to pick and pull them apart. To me, That's cheating. You're cheating right there. You know that I'm going through something. You know that I might be a little weak. So you're going to use what you see visually to pick at me, to make me feel smaller than I already feel. And we got to stop that. We got to teach our babies that just because you have those brand new shoes and those brand new clothes on, yes, you look beautiful, king or queen. Yes, you look amazing. But not everybody is going to be in the same position as you. Doesn't mean that they won't get there. Look at Tyler Perry, for example, and this is just an example, but he used to talk about sleeping by or in or behind the dumpsters. And now he is a multi-millionaire. If not billionaire, I'm not sure. But it's those get it out the mud stories. That's what really wins people's hearts, because it's kind of like, I had nothing. Rappers will say it all the time. I had nothing. Literally nothing. But by faith, work ethic, look at where I'm at now. Here I am now. And sometimes where we mess up is because we had nothing and now we've come into our blessing and come into something, we don't know how to use it. Or we brag and boast about it. And then that's how you create more enemies and cultivates more jealousy and envy. We are still supposed to, in all our blessings, walk around with a sense of humility and appreciate the fact that there is something out there, or someone out there, or our ancestors, or the universe, or the Most High, or God, or whatever you believe in. They have your back and want you to win in this world that we live in. So, with that being said, I'm going to just wrap it up, because I know that my tone in this particular podcast might have been a little bit more urgent. And rightfully so, because no one wants to see people get hurt, let alone die, and they haven't done anything. Innocent or not, these people haven't done anything. You're grocery shopping. What are you doing? You're at school where you're supposed to be, getting your education. What are you doing? You're not doing anything wrong. So, I just feel like with all that being said, it is so important for us to really educate ourselves, educate our families, our children, and our peers on the importance of just being empathetic and compassionate to others in their situations. And just as an individual, practice mindfulness. It is so easy to ridicule and to point the finger at other people for what they do or don't have. But we have to make a conscious decision to not be so judgmental because of the fact of where we are in our lives, because it's all temporary. If you want better out of life, you can have whatever it is that you want, but it's your thoughts. It starts with your mind, your consciousness. What are you telling yourself? What are you saying about other people? What are you doing? Are you a person that's always gossiping? Because that's poison. Are you always self-loathing and putting yourself down? That's poisonous. It's poisonous behavior. And things that are poisonous and toxic will cause toxic behavior. Will cause you to block blessings that were already aligned for you to receive. But because you cannot get out of your own way, you will never reach those blessings. And I don't want that for anyone. I want everyone, and I've always wanted everyone, know or don't know, to win and be successful and achieve the things that they feel that they are supposed to do, because our time on this earth is so limited and we take that for granted. I am making a decision every day to no longer take my life for granted. I want to see the beauty in this world, through the good and the bad. Because even in bad moments, you learn something. Those are teachable moments. Even in what's going on in our world, we have to look at those as teachable moments in how we are going to foresee our future and the things that we're going to do. Because a lot of us is scared. I'm going to just say it. A lot of us is living in fear. And we're not using that fear for the positive change that we want to see. We're using that fear and we're staying stagnant because we are uncomfortable with the change, the things that we don't know, the things that we can't see. I'm telling y'all, we got to shake it up. We got to shake stuff up. We cannot just sit here and watch our life pass us by, giving ourselves day in and day out to companies and to people that aren't supporting us or uplifting us, investing in us. Everything doesn't have to be isolated and alone. It's okay to grind, but like I said before, support is okay too. And most times, support comes from people you don't even know. But you can't get to those moments if you're polluting yourself. You're polluting your mind, you're polluting your body. This stuff that's going on Instagram, bless those people, but it's also a pollution to your mind and your conscious and your subconscious, depending on how you let it affect you. Think about your next steps. Think about your goals. Think about the things that you want to do. Think about your children. If you don't have children and you want to have children, think about their life. Because when I was growing up in school, I never imagined my life would look like this. I never imagined a COVID or a pandemic. I never imagined Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. I never saw that for myself. But it's how we use those things purposefully to where we can actually be fruitful in our lives. So with that being said, I'm going to just wrap it up. I know I was a little preachy in this podcast, but it's just a lot going on and things aren't dying down. It's a lot of injustice happening. And it's not to say that injustice hasn't always happened. It's happened to our ancestors. It's happened to our parents. These things have always taken precedence in America, but you have to really double down on who you are and who you want to be. Are you going to be an individual and stick out and make a difference and break generational curses for yourself and your family and your line? Or are you just going to watch the world go by and fall by the wayside? So moving forward, these are some of the things to consider, Rosebuds. I just want you all to be safe out there and to be observant of your surroundings, observe the world that we live in, and be mindful of the things that are negative, and to not let those negative things take over what you already have going on for yourself, what's already in store for you and your purpose. So protect yourself, protect your energy, protect your loved ones. Do the best that you can to be the best human being that you can be. And always remember, when life throws you thorns, search for roses. Peace.